Okay, 30-second board, hot topics. This week, we're going to look at the standings in the 450 class, 28 regular season rounds, creating seeding for the playoff, and then final that we just saw in Las Vegas. I think everybody knows by now it's Lawrence, Tomac, top three. But there were some other very, very hotly contested battles. Look at Ken Roczen, JT, rallying up to fourth. Also, shout out to Joey Savacci. Quiet but effective as always. He got ninth. That's 90 grand plus whatever he made at each individual race. But that was close in a lot of those positions. That was a real battle.
It really was. And, Ken Roczen was the big winner there. And that was, I believe, an $80,000 difference from Ken Roczen to RJ Hampshire, which could have all changed on Saturday night in Las Vegas. And you wonder, do these seedings matter? Do these individual results matter? Well, I can tell you at Las Vegas with triple points, there's a lot of money up for grabs outside of the headline of that 1, 2, 3 battle that we were focused on.
Yeah, but you could see it on the track. Obviously, the majority of the focus was for the title with those three up front. But they, on the track, were going for it. Webb, RJ, Roczen. Sexton was ahead of them. Unfortunately, he crashed out again, like has happened, unfortunately, the previous 2 years as well. But that was actually really good racing back there.
It was, and it's unfortunate that we weren't able to really show more of that because they were going for it. It just wasn't really kind of the headline coming into the weekend. But yes, Weege, you made this point throughout the week that most finales, just a lot of guys just trying to get through it healthy. They're looking forward to the offseason. Not so much with this playoff and final structure because there's the money on the line. That's not a typical aspect of a final round pre-2023.
Now we'll go back to the top. So this is so intriguing. I don't know of another sport where you win a world title, you get the big trophy, $1 million plus, also 100 grand to win the race, et cetera, et cetera. We'll give you all Jett Lawrence's numbers money-wise with Clinton Fowler later. But JT, he looked more sad than happy.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I believe he knew this was a strong likelihood all day. And I think this was weighing on him throughout the day. It was certainly weighing on him after the race. And it has to be such a difficult thing to work through emotionally because you're accomplishing the goals that you've set out since the inception of this, playoff championship, but just bigger picture, winning championships at all. For Jett Lawrence, that has been the goal. To do it though, you have to go through your older brother who has really been your role model. He has basically laid out the pathway for you and been able to avoid all the pitfalls that may have laid before him. And you have to break his heart along the way. I can't imagine the ups and downs and the roller coaster that Jett had to be feeling, not only after the race. We were able to see that, but mid-race when he's having to decide, hey, if I'm gonna go push here, I know what that's going to do to my brother who happens to be winning this second moto. So we've never seen anything like this in the history of this sport where two brothers are this good and one's victory also causes the other's disappointment and the agony of defeat at the same time.
Yeah, we only get to see, they're with each other 24/7. We just get to see that little window on the podium, and that really told the whole story. Either way, the Lawrences are 1-2 again, just like they were last year. Let's go outside the top 10. We want to shout out some of the wild cards who fought their way in. Did the interview with Benny Bloss there at the end of the race. He was the top finishing wild card because the Liqui Beta team doesn't really compete in pro motocross. So he had to fight his way in through the wild card. He ends up a solid 13th. Also shout out to Cody Schock. He fought his way in. He had bruised heels from a big crash at St. Louis, still got 15th. And Valentin Guillot, that is the American dream right there, JT. He was not on the radar at all. Scrambled to put something together to race pro motocross, got enough points to get in, finished 16th. He wasn't a wild card. He fought his way in through the top 20. But for those guys, those are mission accomplished. Not as much money as the Lawrences, but I think they feel almost as accomplished.
Well, I think Guillot is kind of the example of, hey, if you show up all summer, you put in really strong results, you find a way to get in. And we were talking about that in the final few motocross rounds, like you just gotta get in. And then everything's in front of you. You can make a lot of money per round. And of course, that big, the points payout at the end. So I think there are a lot of people around the world looking at Valentin Guillot as a shining example of what's possible if you come over here and perform.
Now on to the 250s. Here are the points. Again, you know by now that Joe Shimoda won the title. Seth Hammaker, it doesn't look that close. It looked like a 13-point gap. But remember, with a triple points race, that flips one position or two, and that's enough for Hammaker to end up winning the title. Tom Vial ends up third. really, the story here, a couple guys rallied. We'll get to Masterpool as a wild card. I do want to give him a shout out, wild card to 6th. Because Masterpool, I know in his mind, JT, he's trying to use these hybrid tracks to prove he's not just a motocross guy, that he can ride well at Supercross. I don't know if it proves that. But for how bad a year it was for Masterpool to end up 6th, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was. And I think you can just let it be a good result. If he's trying to use this as proof that he is a Supercross guy, I'm not a buyer of what he's selling. But listen, it wasn't a great year for Masterpool. He really didn't kind of have the Pro Motocross summer that he was signed for, in my opinion. But at least this is something to go into the offseason with a little bit of momentum. So all in all, not a great year, but he did bounce back in these playoff rounds and ended it with a 6th in points. So maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. But we look at those points. That does not tell the story at all of what happened. If you just glanced at that, if you had been asleep through the playoffs, you woke up Sunday morning and said, oh, what happened here? You would have no idea the drama that unfolded Saturday to get us to those points.
Right. It looks like, Shimoda just had it under control. Deegan didn't perform and wasn't that far up there. No. What we learned of the highest order of what is Joe Shimoda made of? Well, he's Joe Cool, as our guy James Stewart said as soon as that checkered flag came out. Every single pressure thing that could have been thrown his way was thrown his way, and he made the right move every time, including being able to stay up with multiple knockdown attempts from Deegan.
Oh, he went down. He finally went down at the end. But you have to give him a lot of credit for the resilience he showed. Like, he had not only Haiden Deegan against him, but there were attempts by Daxton Bennick. Like, he was up against a lot here, and in the end, he executed in the way he needed to. First moto was brilliant. Second moto, he did everything that he needed to do, including a last corner pass to secure the overall win also. Like, what else can you say about Joe Shimoda's effort at the finale? Like, he got the job done. He won the championship. He had to go through hell to do it, and he wins the overall in the last corner on top of it. So kudos to that guy. You know how he had to be feeling, the pressure and everything else, and he, I think, A+. What else can you say?
We're going to get to Seth Hammaker in a second, but one other thing on Shimoda, and I did throw this out to James and Ricky during the broadcast, but honestly, they probably haven't been in this position much. Deegan is faster. Shimoda admitted that. And Shimoda knows Deegan's behind me. He's probably going to catch me. And he's probably going to try to take me out. That is like pressure, times pressure, times pressure. I don't know if you've been in that situation, but what is it like to have a guy chasing you down and you know he's not just going to try to pass you, he's probably going to try to hit you?
Well, he really doesn't have a move because Joe was trying to let him go, and Haiden wasn't gonna take the bait there. He was going to slow down and get into an altercation with Joe Shimoda no matter what the speed was. And Joe was also in a position where he couldn't slow down too much because if they dropped back into the pack and then it got chaotic, guess who wins the championship? Seth Hammaker. So it's a really difficult spot for Joe Shimoda. And this is gonna sound crazy, but possibly the best case scenario is exactly what happened, where they finally went down, but Haiden took himself out of the race, which then allowed Joe to go the rest of the moto without incident. And halfway through, there's no way I would have ever thought that possible, but I don't know how else it would have turned out that way, because Haiden was not going to let this go. Come hell or high water, he wasn't going to drop it. So I don't know how else it would have gone in Joe's favor. I really don't.
We'll have reaction to Danger Boy in a second, but to your point, when it started getting dicey, really dicey between those two, yes, the focus looked like it was on Deegan and Shimoda, but it was just as much on Hammaker, who was a move or two away from winning the title, hilariously, coincidentally, ironically, in the exact way that he lost it at Salt Lake City. Levi Kitchen, who is his teammate, so you know that Kitchen wants to help Hammaker, was up there. That was between Vial and Deegan and Kitchen. That would have been enough guys potentially to have Hammaker shoved between he and Shimoda to dig out the title. It didn't happen for Hammaker. Kitchen going out with a bike problem was a huge factor there. But still, don't cry for Seth. He still made, what, $225,000 or something like that for second. But more importantly, not as high as Shimoda, but way to establish himself as a guy in 2025.
He's going to be a championship favorite going into 2026. Can he get the job done? He'll have to earn that on his own merit. But he has now establish himself as a championship contender moving forward, full stop.
Yeah, and we weren't saying that, I think, before 2025. That's the difference.
No, not even close. He was a guy that could go really fast, possibly win a race, which he hadn't done since very early in his career. But this is a very different Seth Hammaker than was ever advertised prior to this season.
Okay, let's do it. It's time to weigh in on Haiden Deegan. Everyone else has, and we have on multiple shows. But as you know with Deegan, the comment section in every single form of media is out of control. I do feel like it's not 50-50 like it normally is. A lot of people are not happy about the tactics. Of course, there are some Deegan fans out there that are saying, hey, on all the shows, they said he was going to have to take Shimoda out. Why are you so mad that he tried to do it? I don't think we're necessarily mad about it. I always say it's people confusing. One person said one thing and one person said another. But look, I think the difference is it was multiple attempts. I think that's the thing that's getting people upset. Everyone knew he was going to have to do something. It was just the fact that it was plural. It was some things that he tried to do.
Well, Godspeed to me in the comments, but here we go. I really think that Haiden set out trying to just go win the race and let things happen in his favor. That was, I believe, the plan going into the first moto. Yes, he made some comments to Joe. Yes, he was trying to get in his head, but that's pretty standard. We've seen even the classiest guys like Cooper Webb do that. To me, not really out of bounds. You're just trying to have them thinking about you other than the job at hand. In that first moto, though, things weren't going to plan. Joe got the start, which was a net negative for Haiden. Haiden was further back. He was battling and then had that huge crash with Rider D. So things were coming off the rails pretty quickly for Haiden. I think that going into Moto 2, that's where everything changed. He said, well, just winning the race isn't going to do it, especially if Joe is anywhere near the front on the first few laps. I'm going to have to take this into my own hands to have any chance. And if that means knocking him down, if that means going to the extremes, then I have a better chance of maybe the AMA looking the other way. Maybe I find some sort of loophole here and win this championship. But I can tell you how I won't win it is just going about my business and getting first or second overall when Joe and Seth are both at the front. Like, he knew that wasn't going to work. He knew the math wasn't going to work. And at some point, I think he just decided, I'm going to choose chaos and I'm going to try to make this race as crazy as humanly possible. Whether that means breaking his motorcycle, maybe he bends a shifter, maybe Joe goes back to 10th because he can't get out of second gear. There are a lot of variables there that if he could work around the AMA not penalizing him, I think he was just like, I'll try anything else because what my original plan was is now not going to work. Having said all that, I don't think this was executed very well. I don't think it was a very good plan. I don't think it was really in the spirit of competition. And penalties say the same thing. I think most people viewing it that I talked to kind of said the same thing. But if you're going to just look at it in a binary win or lose the championship, and to win, you'll do it at all costs, the math kind of works. Like, he was trying to make it happen however he possibly could. The rest is on a judgment call per fan. Like, everybody's going to have their own perspective on this. For me, pretty far over the line, but I also have to say in the same breath, it was awfully entertaining.
And on the heels of that news, the bumps and bruises there for Sexton and Deegan, I think it's very likely that they might need 2 new riders for Team USA. So give us some of the options, JT.
Well, I think the most likely scenario is that Justin Cooper jumps on the 250, which would give him another shot at it. Remember his heroic effort in 2022 on the 250. And then RJ Hampshire is ready to go on the 450, and he has been fantastic all summer. So we do have, plausible options for fill-ins. Cooper Webb also said he's in Maui right this second, but he did say, hey, if I get the call, I will walk through this with the wife. She's going to be disappointed, but I'll jump on a plane and fly back and start riding 250 right away. So the best part is we are in the USA this year, which opens the door a little bit to more options. It makes it a little bit easier to find people to step up in the moment. It's going to be a tough ask. It doesn't feel like the likelihood of maybe walking out of there with the win is what it was. But if you know anything about Justin Cooper and especially RJ Hampshire, those guys will step up and do whatever is asked of them.
One more thing, fans, check out raisit4usa.com. That's raisit4usa.com. They've got a raffle going still, and all the money goes to Team USA. There's a lot of the Redbud plastics and gear with the American look that everybody puts together for July 4th weekend. riders and teams gave the plastic and gear up, you can join the raffle and then win the stuff, and the money goes to Team USA. There's a lot of infrastructure at the race beyond what the riders and teams normally have. Try to get Team USA together and win, and this is what pays for that. So raiseitforusa.com. Tip of the visor to our buddy Mike Bonacci, who puts that together. Now, as for some of the racers you'll see at Motocross of Nations next weekend at Ironman, the MXGP championship just wrapped up down under with an Australian Grand Prix for the first time in decades. Honestly, JT, it might have been just as wild as the SMX final.
Yeah, a lot of drama. The MXGP class was kind of all but one. Roman Febvre wins his first championship in 10 years. There wasn't a lot of suspense there, but man, that MX2 class. And if you were on a 250 anywhere around the world this weekend, it seemed like just buckle up. And we saw a lot of the kind of same shenanigans between Kai de Wolf and Simon Langenfelder that we saw between Haiden, Deegan, and Joe Shimoda in Las Vegas. Wild weekend down there. Lightning cut the race short. There was a lot of drama afterwards about that decision. And there's still a lot happening behind the scenes with that series. So wherever you were watching the sport of super motocross around the world, you were highly entertained for championships on the weekend.
Those weren't the only titles. Also WMX. That was fun to watch too.
Yeah, a lot of battling in that class too. Charlie Cannon, who we've seen come over in the WMX race here in America, raced in that Australian round. And she was in the battle for the podium, had a crash, which took her back in the results. But yeah, lots of Van Drunen, lots of racing going on there. Chiara Fontanesi, who has been racing seemingly for decades now. We're all battling it out down under.
Now, we're going to have to do an entire episode on silly season during the off season because there's so much change. We'll try to get through some of the highlights here as quickly as possible. Chase Sexton is moving from Red Bull KTM to Monster Energy Kawasaki, and Eli Tomac is moving to Red Bull KTM. Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing really doesn't have room to have Deegan, Webb, and Tomac, big salary guys, all on the same 450 team. So that's why Tomac's moving. And there's a lot of other parts. We believe Jason Anderson might be in a Suzuki next year. We still don't know where Jorge Prado is going to end up. Definitely not going to be back in a Kawasaki. We're pretty assured of that. And I don't know, like that's going to be probably the biggest question of 2026 with the new faces in new places.
Yeah, a lot of shakeup. And I think the big winners here are the guys that are keeping their programs super consistent. Look at the Lawrence brothers. They're just going to rinse and repeat. They had a lot of issue with that 2025 chassis this year. That seems like they have that sorted, so it won't be the same situation going into 2026. But across the paddock, there's a lot of shakeups. Guys like Justin Barcia, who we have associated with that gas team for however long now, seems like we hear, going to make the move to Ducati, which will be a complete shakeup for him. So give me a lot of different colors for a lot of different numbers in 2026.
Yeah, that Ducati rumor, people have been hot on that for a while because Ducati's reputation in road racing is so strong. We think it's going to be Justin Barcia and Dylan Ferrandis over there. Factory Connection, who helps Ferrandis' current Phoenix Honda program, is also involved with the Ducati program, so that makes Ferrandis probably a more natural fit than you might realize. But I don't know about the Ducati thing. I feel like what people think is this is the MotoGP dominant brand, and they're going to be like that in Supercross. But what I'm hearing, this is pretty late. They weren't even assured they were going to be ready for Anaheim. I believe they will be there, but that gives you an idea of this is still very much a work in progress.
It's going to be. There's no question about it. Brand new motorcycle going into something like Monster Energy Supercross. There will be a learning curve. There will be growing pains. And I do believe that's why you didn't see riders like Eli Tomac or Ken Roczen end up there, because they're too far along in their career to start over with a brand new platform and go through that development process. Eli Tomac specifically is in a win now mentality. And I think that was the biggest driver why you saw him go to an established team like Red Bull KTM.
Yes, it all leads to 2026. Now, the regular season schedule will be announced next week. That is September 30th. All 28 regular season rounds. That's Monster Energy Supercross and Pro Motocross, the dates and the locations. Spoiler alert, we have been assured there will be an Anaheim 1. So we can give you that much information. I have a feeling, just on tradition, that Pro Motocross will be similar to what people have come to love and know throughout the years. But stay tuned. That'll be next week, September 30th. The schedule is announced. If you're part of the pre-sale, you can get tickets early. The regular ticket sales begin on October 7th. So go to supermotocross.com and try to get yourself signed up for the pre-sale and get your tickets early, September 30th.
Hi folks, Lee Diffie from NBC Sports. If you enjoyed what you just watched, well, it's time to bring the action and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel. You can have it all: news, highlights, interviews, and analysis. So go for it.